We are in the Beyond Default studio today with Ellen Dorian. Welcome, Ellen. It is so beautiful to have you here.
Well, Katrina, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here today.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And Ellen and I are connecting from one side of the globe to another. I am in Sydney, Australia, and Ellen is whereabouts in the USA, Ellen?
I'm in Boston, so on the US East Coast.
Fantastic.
So
So Ellen and I met many years ago through a networking group, and we've stayed connected since then, and been really enjoying some conversations with each other of late over the last probably 6 months, and felt that it's time to get together and share some of Ellen's story and her wisdom with so many other people. So I guess, Ellen, let's kind of start out. I mean, obviously, the topic of my podcast is Beyond Default, and talking with people, with everyday people, about how they've chosen to live a life by design versus something that they're just defaulting to. Can you tell us a little bit about your story up until now?
oh gosh, okay, that's a long story. Um, let's see. Well, I'll just start a few years back. At some point in my life, I realized that if I just let life happen to me, that I wasn't liking the trajectory of it. I really just wasn't liking the way things were going. I wasn't feeling like myself. I wasn't doing work that I loved. I was unhappy with my body. I was very overweight. I was very getting more and more unhealthy as time went on. I was in a bad marriage to someone who was an alcoholic, and it was having a major impact on me. And it really got to
Mm.
the point where I realized that I had to do something different on purpose if I was going to have any kind of life worth living.
Wow. I love what you said there, Ellen. I had to do something different on purpose. Often we talk about, there's a book called The One Thing, and it talks about like the domino effect, like push one domino over and then it has an effect on others. Did you decide, like, what was the first thing? Did you decide, one thing to change first and then change others? Like, how did you go about? It sounds like there was probably 3 areas of your life that was really not working for you. How did you do that on purpose, and what did you do first?
Mm. Well, so I wouldn't call it dominoes. They'd have to be slow motion dominoes. But the first thing I realized is that I had to get out of that marriage. It was,
Mm.
I was, by the time I know not everyone in your audience will be able to translate this directly, but by the time I got out of that marriage, I weighed 300 pounds. I
Mm.
was, I was depressed, anxious, sad and crying all the time, worried all
Wow.
the time. And so I had to get out of that marriage first. And then I had to regroup. And I was very lucky because I had good friendships. Um, and my current husband, now I've known him for 18 years. And we've been together as a couple for 17 years. He was a friend of ours already. So, you know, um, when I made that decision to get out of the marriage, separate, I moved back in with my mother. Sometimes when you're doing stuff on purpose, you have to do things that maybe you don't want to do. It has to
Yes.
be some discomfort first. So I moved back in with my mother. We got divorced. We sold the condo, and in the meantime, I had this friend Steve, right? And as that separation progressed, it became clear that Steve was interested in having a relationship with me, and so that was how I got into my current relationship. And he, to be to give him credit, he lived with me through some really awful times. It took a while before I was able to even think straight. And then it took another while for me to decide to do something about my health. And
Mm.
And that was a conscious decision that I had to make. And that was in stages, right? You know, I didn't just decide. I know some people just decide that they're going to get healthy and they go on a diet and they start running and they reach their goal and they decide they're going to run they're going to be in the Ironman triathlon or they're going to go skydiving. It's always one of those two things. I don't know why, but it's always one of those two things. And I was uninterested in either one of those. That was not how my relationship with myself was going. So I said to Steve, by that time we were living together, and I said to Steve, I feel like I need to do something about this. And he's the first person in my life who ever said, I think that's a great idea. Let's do it together.
Yeah, wow.
So we started pursuing things together. So then a series of actions on purpose that required me to really get out of my comfort zone happened after that. So the first one of those things was starting to get moving. And at 300
Yes.
pounds, moving was not something I could do by default. I had to do it on purpose. So I started by taking some, aqua aerobics classes with all the little old ladies. And then I moved on. We got a personal trainer. And that was really uncomfortable for me because it was an environment that reminded me of physical ed class that I really didn't want to remember and all those things. But it got us on track. So that was the next decision. And then the next decision was to go keto. Right. And that was hard because Steve was like, go with God, dear. I'm not going to go keto with you. But, but he was supportive, but, so then I did that and that got me started on losing weight. And I did a few other things to get started. And, everybody's on GLP-1s now and everybody's dropping weight, 5 pounds a week and all these things. It took me over 10 years to lose 125 pounds. And
wow, Ellen, congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. And that was a series of decisions. So a bunch of decisions on purpose that were uncomfortable, that were quite radical for me.
Yeah.
And, required a lot of courage. So
that's actually what I was going to talk about, Ellen. Some of those decisions, they require, particularly like leaving a marriage, that requires a lot of courage. Tell me, like, what kind of strategies have you used over time to, I guess, help you with making those decisions?
Well, I'd love to say that I did something very noble and deep about it. But honestly, it just got to the point where it felt like a survival choice.
Yes.
If I don't do this, I will not survive. Now, would I die? No. But would I be having a life that I could enjoy? Also, no. So that's what I mean by would I survive? And I guess so for me, survive is way more than just surviving. Right. So,
yes.
So in every one of those cases, when I chose to end that marriage, every one of those things that I did and other things before that too, I made sure that I had exhausted all of the easy options before I made the hard choice. So I could never look back and say, oh, if I had only just done, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about how you've applied some of those strategies to, the decision you made in your marriage and then leaving your relationship. I mean, obviously now you're a relationship strategist.
Yes.
Let's talk about, some of the courage it took to leave that relationship and maybe some of the things that you learned, from that experience that you're now being able to teach others.
Sure. I would say the most important lesson that I learned, that I still have to keep relearning, is that you can only change yourself. You cannot change anyone else. And if anyone has lived with someone with any kind of an addiction, we know this, right? So the choice is, can you live with the person as they are? Right.
Yes.
And can you have a good life as they are? Because you're not going to change anyone else. The only person you can change is you. And
Yes.
also the recognition that if you change yourself, a bunch of things in your life might not fit anymore, right? A relationship might not fit anymore. I had friendships that changed. I had friendships with people that I've known essentially since I was born. I was still living in my hometown, and I had friends that I'd been friends with for 40 years. And those friendships had to change because
Wow.
Because it was necessary. So this is what I learned, is that you can only change yourself, and as a result of that, other things are going to change. And it's just the cost. So I'd say that's the biggest lesson.
And like, now you work as a relationship strategist. I mean, a lot of people are in business. I mean, I know in our community, we have a lot of people in business together. In our health community, they're in partnership and they support people in their health. Sometimes being in business together is not easy in a relationship. So any kind of relationship, but of course, when you're married as well, you're trying to have a relationship as a husband and wife, and you're having a relationship as business partners. Why don't you talk about, just share with us any kind of wisdom that you've got around that? I'd love to know that.
So a few things. So one thing I will say is that I didn't start out as a relationship coach. I started out as a business coach. I was working with owners of commercial construction businesses. So they were all men. And in those days, coaching meant going to their offices once a week and sitting down with them one-on-one. And when you do that, you develop a very close relationship. And people came to trust me and started talking about, some of them started talking about their relationship issues. And surprise, surprise, their relationships, their marriages were not healthy. And that is how I got into relationship coaching. And my relationship coaching now is designed for business owners. It's
Wow.
I find it's important because any other kind of relationship help that you can get isn't as likely to understand the unique lifestyle of the entrepreneur. And
Yes.
it's a different mindset altogether. It's a different breed. It's a different energy level, and different focus points. So traditional relationship therapy, marriage counseling wasn't working for a lot of my clients, because a lot of the people that were trying to help had never run their own business, had never been responsible for their own income and the income of, anywhere from 10 to 50 other people. So they didn't
Yes.
understand all the requirements. And so that's how I got into this. And what I did in order to make it comfortable for my clients, who were still mostly men, mostly in the construction industry, was I just started using the same tools we were using to grow their businesses and applying them to the relationship. So we talked about strategic planning was a big thing that I worked on with my clients in the business. I said, let's do a strategic plan for your relationship. And
Fabulous.
it evolved from there. And it was helpful for my clients because they felt comfortable with it. I wasn't asking them to bare their souls. All right. I was just saying, let's talk about what you'd like your relationship to look like in 3 years, in 12 months. And what do we need to do between there, here and there to get there. Right. And that started to get people opened up. And then we started adding other things like resource and logistics planning, I used to call it. So we did a lot of that in the business side of things. And I said, well, what if we did that in our relationship? Because the problem with relationships, and this applies directly to to people who are in business together, is that unless you are very deliberate in the way that you are communicating with each other, every conversation you have is going to be based on some kind of logistics or resource planning. Right?
Yes.
It's going to be about who's going to pick up the kids and when does the car need to go into the shop, and I need to go to the dentist, and I have a deadline on Friday, and and where's the money to do this thing, and so every conversation you have can easily turn into conversation about logistics. And so a deliberate choice, it's a two-part choice. One is that you have to set up a way to get the logistics handled in your relationship as well as your business. And the other is that you have to make space for and energy for conversations that are not about logistics.
Right? 100%.
Because if you're living your life by default, you don't have to think about, oh my gosh, what am I going to ask my partner that I've been married to for 20 years that I don't already know about them?
Yeah.
How am I going to make this work? So what I started in my system was a weekly planning meeting to discuss specifically logistics and resource. So I recommend to my clients that they take one time per week, the same time every week. And you can make it fancy. I mean, you can make it over cocktails or over breakfast, or you can make it more like a business meeting if that works for you. But the idea is to look at the week ahead, right?
Yes.
And plan out the things, lay down the things that are already planned on a joint calendar so you can see if there are conflicts. Then lay down other things, mitigating factors, I call them. So for instance, if I have a proposal due on Friday, Thursday is not a good night for my partner to plan a dinner party.
Yeah.
It's a simple thing, but most people don't ever talk about it until they're faced with the problem where one partner's saying, hey, the company's coming any minute. And the second partner's going, I can't do that. I am not done with this proposal, right? That's what I mean. So let's look at those things. Let's look at the things that we promised each other that we would do, right? That comes from the strategic plan. So what did we promise we were going to do? Like, for instance, take a walk after dinner 3 times a week, right? Or first thing in the morning. I'm a night person, so my stuff is all night. But a lot of people get up early in the morning and want to take a walk in the morning. But if you don't plan for it, you won't do it, right?
Yes.
Most people talk about something like that for their relationship for years before they actually do it, if they ever do. So put that in your strategic plan. I mean, your weekly plan, and lay all that out, and then look at it and go, is this realistic? Could we actually do this? And if you can't, then don't go forward. Go back and look at it and take stuff out until you have a plan that's workable, which is the other thing people never do. Right? They just get into the middle of it, and then halfway through, they're at each other's throats because they're both exhausted. They're not accomplishing what they want because they were never going to be able to accomplish what they want because it was much too much for 1 week. So that's
that's where all the tension points come in, isn't it? It's like, if you don't talk about those things beforehand, in the moment when someone's like, oh, well, I meant to be doing this, and I thought we were doing that, it's like there's the tension, and then all of it, like it creates friction in your relationship that you just don't need. Like you say, like if you talk about it beforehand and you plan for it and both agree to it, then there's so much more harmony, but also too, not trying to work it out in the busyness,
Right.
Because I think when everyone's busy, the tensions just rise, and that's when conflict happens. Yeah.
And
Thank you,
life
Ellen.
is going to and life is going to interrupt you enough, right? No matter what you plan, life is going to come in and interrupt you. So don't start with something that's near impossible to do, because something is going to go wrong at some point during the week, right? So getting all that stuff into a weekly plan so that you have some control over it is the first step. And then making time on purpose to communicate with each other in ways that build your bond, increase your intimacy. And our fun is the other part of that. And so I recommend, it's going to sound like nothing, but I recommend 10 minutes a day of uninterrupted, phone free, concentrated time where you're not allowed to talk about logistics and resources. You're going to talk about deeper things. Whatever that is, it could be planning a trip. It could be something big that needs to happen in your relationship. It could be about health. It could be a lot of things, but it's not about the day-to-day routine.
It's a logistics and resources free zone.
Yes,
well,
it is.
My husband and I, we do an evening walk together every night, but I'm thinking now, Ellen, we talk too much about the logistics and resources.
So something for you to try. I will
exactly.
I have a planning worksheet. I'll send it to you so you can give it a try.
I think we might need it.
I bet you won't, but it's
we might need I think we need a logistics and resources exclusion. So, in fact, we actually have agreed, for instance, because we both work at home, we have agreed, for example, there's no business talk in the living room. If you want to talk business, we're talking in the office. But, we can't talk business outside of the living room. And we do call each other on that. But I think we've got to get our evening walk right, because it is a really lovely time that we get to spend with each other every day. But we probably haven't got that part right.
Well, the first thing is get the walk, right? The first thing is get the walk in place. Then you can work on what to talk about inside the walk. Because if you try to make everything perfect from the start, you won't get anywhere. So work with it perfect.
True.
And move forward. But I love the idea of the living room, especially for your clients who work together in the business. I think they should all make a rule that you only talk about business in the office. Especially don't talk about business in the bedroom.
Yes.
Right? Business is not pillow talk, right? So let's not do that.
I have had my husband do that to me, where I'm like in bed and I'm doing my kind of reading and journaling and finishing my day with gratitude. And he'll say something about the business. I'm like, don't talk to me about that right now. It is actually a friction point for me. And of course, he just does it because it's something on his mind. So he wants to get it out before the end of the day. But I will often say to him, just pop it on a WhatsApp. You want to get it out of your mind, so pop it on a WhatsApp to me, but I won't be looking at it till tomorrow, because he's just trying to empty his thoughts in his mind. So I get that. I don't want them empty them to me.
Right. That's the beauty of asynchronous communication, right? Which is texting and email and Post-it notes on the fridge. Those are all asynchronous communication. You do it when you want, and they respond to it when they want.
Oh, I love that, Ellen. I love that. We talk to people in our business about that all the time. I mean, him and I, when we communicate stuff with each other on the business, we actually send it via WhatsApp, just like we do with our mentors. We send things via WhatsApp, and like we do with our coaches. And the reason we do that is for that exact reason. If we went to each other every time we wanted someone to tell each other something, we'd be constantly interrupting each other. So, he'll send me a message saying, hey, I saw this, have a look at it when you get a chance. And again, he's sending it when it works for him. I'm doing it when it works for me. So it's
beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Well, I mean, otherwise you're constantly doing things to the other person when it's right for you versus being right for the other person.
Yeah. I will make one caveat about that. Is we also, if we're going to use asynchronous communication, we also have to temper our expectations for the window for reply.
Right? Yes.
You can't, none of these will work if you're expecting an immediate response every time.
Yes.
None of these. So agree with each other, a code word or a color or or something, if it's something that needs an immediate reply, find a way to encode that into your asynchronous communication so the person knows that this is urgent and they need to set aside time as soon as possible to deal with it. Otherwise, it might not be till tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, right? And we have to be ready for that. So
allow them to respond in their time. I like that. But I mean, all of this is about clear communication, right? It's
mhm.
communicating about the logistics and resources, or not communicating about those things when you should be communicating about other things. I mean, communication just can, cause tension in a relationship, and it can cause wonder in a relationship, and for things to be working really synchronistically. I mean, have you got any tips on communication, Ellen, that you could share, or things that you've learned over time?
Well, a few things. One is communication can be a loaded term for some couples, right? People can
Right.
feel a lot of pressure just to be good communicators. What does that mean? And it can cause a lot of tension. So I actually go even higher level than that. And what I say is everything in relationships, every single thing in relationship boils down to one thing, and that is paying attention.
Ah,
Pay attention. Don't, first of all, don't multitask. Multitasking is a myth anyway. We don't really multitask. All we do is context
exactly.
switch very
I
quickly.
know.
So pay attention. Stop what you're doing to do the next thing, right? Don't keep on doing the things, and then make sure your head is clear. So paying attention. Then when it comes to communicating, what's been helpful for my mostly male clients is they get into a bind because they don't want to bring things up, because they don't want to cause
Mm,
a thing. They don't want to cause a conflict. They don't want to get into an argument. And so I say, imagine that your life partner is a business partner. If you have something important to talk about with your business partner, let's say, something's going wrong in the business, you say, we need to sit down and have a conversation because this is not going the way that I hoped it would. I don't think it's going that well for you either. Let's talk about it. And people do it all the time, right? There's no
mm,
emotional risk to doing that. So, what I would say about communication is emotional risk. Eliminate the emotional risk. Just make an agreement between you to communicate what needs to be communicated, and then deal with the problems that arise as they go. If you are too afraid to communicate, or you're waiting for the right time to communicate, or you're pulling your words to the point where you're not expressing what's really wrong, that's not that's communicating, and it's in a completely ineffective way. So
yes.
so if you're in a relationship with your partner, whether you're working together or not, this is the person that you have chosen to be the most close to in the whole world, right? So you should be able to say anything. And I know most people can't. Many people can't say anything.
Wow.
Um, and
Mm,
and one more tip that I will say is, when you are communicating and it's contentious, the most important thing to try to do is don't attack each other. Work together
yes.
to attack the problem, right? There's
Mm,
If someone says, I don't like the way that you X, whatever that is, there's something under there. There's some underlying problem. How do we, so instead of saying, well, I don't like the way you do Y, or what about this? And is what aboutism a term in Australia? What aboutism? It's
what
like,
about ism?
yeah. So it's like when you make a request or an objection, and the other person comes back with a unrelated, what about this? What about that? That's what about ism. So if you're, if, if that's what you're doing, you're not really going to get anywhere except for more and more aggravated with each other. So if
Mm,
you can find the way to look at what is the problem we're really trying to solve, right? Then work on solving that problem together. That's going to mitigate a lot of conflict. It's not that you're never going to have conflict, right? And
yes.
it's easy to say all these things. It's not easy to do all these things. That's why relationship coaches and health coaches and wellness coaches exist, because it's not
Yeah.
always easy. This is not always a do it yourself project. Sometimes
Mm,
it helps to have someone who has expertise, tools, experience to help you find new ways to do things. So don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Yeah, so true, Ellen. We can't always have often we have the answers within ourselves, and the coach can help us to find them. But I really love that strategy around attack the problem, not each other. So have you got some, I know we've only got a few minutes left, so I just want to maybe get a little bit of more wisdom from you on things like books or podcasts. Have you got some recommended books that you love and love to recommend?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would be a very poor business person if I didn't mention my own podcast. So I will mention
Yes.
my own podcast, which is called Make More Love. And it is relationship strategies for business owners specifically. It comes out twice a month. They're 15 to 20-minute episodes, except for when we do interviews. So those are a little bit longer. Episode 80 is coming out next week.
Nice work, Ellen.
So there's a nice library of stuff there for you. When it comes to books, well, I will say anything written by Esther Perel is going to be extremely interesting to read, and you will get some good value out of it. So one of her famous books is called Mating in Captivity.
Oh, wow.
And it's about keeping desire and passion alive in long-term relationships.
Wow, sounds fabulous.
So that's one of them. And she's got something called The State of Affairs, I think is the other book. And that is about surviving infidelity, understanding and surviving infidelity. And so those are two books, and you can look up Esther Perel. Anything she does, I would recommend. And the other one is the Gottman Institute. John Gottman and his wife, Julie, have several books and resources that are outstanding. There's one book, their original book, which is, it's like the 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work. It's got the worst title to remember because it's just so mundane. But if you look, you'll find it. And it's full of exercises that you can do together.
Nice.
So if you like a structured approach, that book is going to be superb.
Nice and practical that you can implement in life.
Yeah. And then let me see. Is there anything else that I would recommend? I'm sure there are other things that I would recommend. And I'm happy to pass them along when I think of them, and you can pass them along to your listeners or your clients.
Well, no doubt some of these things have been talked about, in your podcast or on your website and things like that. How do people find you, Ellen, if they'd like to connect with you?
So if you would like to connect with me, the best way to do it, honestly, is just to send me an email. It's ellen@doriangroup.com. That's the easiest way. If you send me a message, I'll reply, and I will reply personally. No one else looks in my email except for me. So that is the easiest, quickest way to get in touch with me directly. Or you can book a call. I have a site. It's relationshipresetcall.com. And so you can go to that website and you can book a call. It's a 10, 15, 20-minute call. It's free. It's private. It's quick. It's not, again, it's not the bearing of souls, but I'm happy to help wherever I can. You can check out my website, which is passionatepartnersproject.com. And then the podcast is makemorelove.show. And you can find it there and download it to your favorite platform.
Well, I think I love the title of your podcast, without having even watched many episodes. So, Ellen, it has been really lovely talking with you today. I think one of the things that I really love about your experience is that you've experienced, relationships, you've experienced hardships, you've experienced times where life wasn't going the way you wanted it to go, and so you needed to redirect. You found some strategies, and now you're doing whatever you can to find more strategies and leverage more strategies to help other people, who might be going through some of those pain points that you had. So are there any last, anything else on your heart today that you'd like to share with people before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think one more thing is everyone has troubles. Everyone. It doesn't matter who you are. There is not a human being on earth who isn't faced with problems that can sometimes feel insurmountable. So what's on my heart is be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself, be gentle with your partner, be gentle with as many people as you could tolerate. Sometimes you can't, but be gentle as much as you can, because there's this cliche, you don't know what other people are going through, right?
Yes.
But beating yourself up is no way to get change in your life. Be gentle with yourself. Make little changes. One little change can make a big difference and get you on a path to making another little change. So that's on my heart.
Thank you, Ellen. Well, I really appreciate having this conversation with you today and sharing so much of your goodness with people. So I appreciate that. And I know that if they book in one of those chat sessions with you, that they will get a lot of value from those conversations. So thank you, Ellen. You've been wonderful.
Thank you, Katrina. It's been just a pleasure talking with you. I'll look forward to more of that.
Me too.